Cliff, Ross,
Tass, Zoran, Mike,
Jacinta,
Tristan,
Andrew, David,
Svetlana,
Jane,
Adrian,
Lockie,
Dean,
Chandra,
Sigrid, and we go to Bob.
They've taken enough of her. She wants more. Well, good morning, everyone.
morning,
Morning,
Bob.
Life's amazing, isn't it?
Yes.
An hour and a half ago, this room was empty. Now look at it. Sense the presence, the warmth, and the love that's been brought into it. And this is the same with life. It's constantly changing. Ever fresh, ever new, ever present, and ever aware. Is there anyone who is not aware of it right now at this moment? No.
someone.
Hang on. Yeah, just hang on. You folks. Thank you very much. Okay.
Touch your feet.
Continue.
Continue. There's no beginning. So that's what we point to, the non-duality, the ever-fresh presence awareness, which they say there's just this, nothing else, even though it's expressing in all these different patterns, shapes and forms. But the life essence that is expressing, patterning, shaping and forming is what you are. And that is all there is. There is only life. As Nisargadatta tells us, only life. There's nobody who lives a life. Life lives on life. And out of life, more life comes. Where did you come from? You realise you came from the life of your parents. Where do they come from? The life of their parents. You can trace it back to, can you find any beginning to it? And can you might postulate and think of some ending, but what has no beginning can't possibly have an ending. So what you are, you already are. But we've taken on this belief that we are these separate entities, these individuals, the persons. And where did that word person come from? Doesn't it come from the ancient Latin persona, the mask? So we've got this conceptual image. I am Bob, I am Australian, I am this, I am that. All conceptual. What I was told and never investigated till some time later when that forced this pattern to have a look and see for itself. And that's all that needs to happen, is to investigate and see for yourself. And they tell us that the false cannot stand up to investigation. So when you do investigate properly. If it's not the truth, it'll fall apart. And that's what they say. Claim loudly. Know the truth. And the truth will set you free. Free from what? Free from the belief that we are this person, this separate entity, this human being. And what's the belief? And you look into your dictionary and say, look up the dictionary of belief, you'll see it's an unquestioned acceptance of something in the absence of reason. I mean, we're sitting here, we haven't investigated and taken it for granted that what we've been told we are. An unquestioned acceptance of something in the absence of reason, acceptance of an alleged fact without positive knowledge or proof. And that's what they say, when you do investigate, the false cannot stand up to the investigation. So I've taken on this belief that I am this body, this mind, this person. But they tell us in the Advaita teachings that it's non-dual. It's one without a second, not two. And they describe it as Sat, Chit, Ananda, Nama, Rupa. The five factors. Sat is existence, Chit is consciousness, Ananda is loving to be, and Nama Rupa, the body-mind, they tell you, is Maya. It's illusion. It only appears to be so. But the Sat, the existence, anyone who is not existing right now, and you realise, no, I'm existing. Anyone who is not conscious, no, I'm not unconscious or unaware. I'm not unaware. Anyone who's not happy to be, you're all happy to be. You don't want to be dead right now, do you? So you're already that. We're already that, and we've swapped it for the idea that I am this individual, this person. Because when you learnt words, and you weren't born with any words, you didn't pick up words till about 2.5, when the capacity of reasoning develops in you. And we're taking the word to be real. Your parents told you, you are Billy or Jean or whatever your name might be, and you learnt the concept, I am. And when they told you that, instead of investigating, you said, yes, I am Billy or I'm Jean. I am this person. And from then on, we've believed it to be so, reinforced it, and realised there's got to be more to it than that. And started looking for ways out, and we've gone into a lot of the religions. The religions go a certain way, and then when they set it up as someone greater than someone else and put all the rules and regulations on it, it loses its reality. And that's why you're all here, because you've looked beyond that, come to reasons that's not good enough. I'm not this sinner, I'm not this miserable human being. There's got to be more to it. Takes you into looking to something else. And if you're open and keep open to it, it'll take you to where you've got to go. All by itself. Just by being open and looking into some of the beliefs we've taken on board. Am I this body? Well, innately you know you're not the body, because you say my body. You say my house, my car, my coat. You know not the house, the car or the coat. So maybe you're not the body either. And when you investigate it, what's the body made up of? You'll see the body's made up of elements. Air, earth, fire, water, space. just like your elements around you. Test it out, stop breathing. See how long it lasts without breathing. Stop drinking water. See how long it lasts without water. Take the fire, the body temperature. You'd soon get hypothermia and die. Get off the earth if you can. Get out of space. When you come to investigate it, you're not separate from those elements. All those elements can be broken down into subatomic particles, into pure energy. So that's all this body is, a vibrating pattern of energy. And what about the thing called mind? We say, my mind. Well, if you believe you are the mind, show me a thing called mind. Is there such a thing as mind? I believe there was a mind, but I'm absolutely certain there's no such thing as mind now because it's been investigated and seen through. Call it my mind. Just the same again as my house, my car. And what is mind? Isn't so-called mind is nothing but thought. What's thought? Word. What's word? Sound. What is sound? A vibration. And a vibration is nothing but a movement of energy. Didn't Einstein tell you that? There's only energy, not only Einstein, but lots of others have looked at. There's only energy. And intelligence energy. Intelligence, the intelligence is the capacity of knowing. It's a knowing energy. And that's what we are, that's intelligence energy. The activity of knowing. There's nobody who's not knowing right now. And the ing on it, the knowing is something that's going on right in this moment. And that ing is an activity, a movement. And the basic knowing is I am. But the bad part about that is we take I am this person, this body. Not that I am the absolute. Which they tell me in the scriptures, those that have investigated and understood it, say it's absolute. Only the one essence, non-duality, not two. One without a second. One essence that's pattern, shapes and forms, experiences and expressing as everything. And that's the great mantra. I am that. Don't you innately know that already? Because you say, that's the chair I'm sitting in. That's the room the chair's in. That's the space in the room. That's the tree. That's the flower. That's the earth. That's the space. That's the sky. Everything is that. Which we haven't left as it is. We've discriminated and put these other labels on. Chair, carpet, me, you. And taken the discrimination, the word, to be real. Instead of seeing it just as it is. Only that. That is all there is. Has the capacity and ability to express through all these different patterns, which is you, I, and every other pattern, shape and form. And we believe that we are this separate entity. But the call is know the truth. Know the truth, and the truth will set you free. What is there to be free from? Only this belief that we've taken on, that we're separate and apart. We are individuals, we are persons. And that sense of separation is the cause of all your insecurity, all your vulnerability, all your fear, all your anger, your jealousy, your envy. All because of that, got this sense of isolation, this separation, me. And you see other than me, that they've got what I haven't got. They're better, or not as good as, or whatever. And we relate to these conceptual images. So all our problems are problems of relationship. Not just the male-female relationship. When that's understood, it's not a relationship at all, it's a natural merging. A coming together of that love and life. It's recognised what its partner. And in that, there's not the problems that there are in the human relationship. But when there's her and I, or me and you, look at the problems that causes. She does this and she shouldn't do, or I like this, or I don't like that, and want this. All our concepts and ideas come about, that applies to everything. That sense of separation. We think we have to become better or more excused. When you have a look at nature, is it dualistic? We look out there, we say day, night, winter, summer, high tide, low tide, seems to be separate. But is it? Or is it just the way it vibrates? As Shakespeare told you 400 years ago, he says there's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And look at the way you think. Either in the past, future, pleasant, painful, happy, sad, loving, hating, positive, negative. That's the way the mind operates. And the division, instead of seeing it all as that, is the labels we put on. This is good, that's bad. It's pleasant, that's painful, or happy. So we've got this sense of separation and trying to make it complete. We think we've got to make it complete or whole and become something. We've got to realise or recognise. And that's the mistake we make, trying to become. Because becoming is not being. Being is going on right now. Nobody can negate your beingness. Becoming implies a future time. And when you look into the concept of time and ask yourself, is there a past if I don't think about it? If you look at that, can you say there's a past without a thought? You'll say, I was in the past. I'll say, well, try and live yesterday. Try and live a moment ago. You realise you can't go back and live yesterday or even a moment ago. You can recall it. But when you're recalling it right now. You're not going back and living it. And if you're not recalling it, it's gone forever. So we go back to that past when we say, I was born. But there's nobody who can remember the birth. Though a lot of people claim to remember your birth. But how could you remember your birth if you had no words at your birth? And you didn't have... Look at a little child now, it's got no words when it's born. Not until it learns words at about 2.5. Then you can put these claims in if you want to believe them then. But that's what we do. So you can't remember your birth. So you live for the first couple of years of your life without the word. You survived and got along all right. And then at about the age of 2, you learnt words from your parents. And that's when our problems started. Because we took the word and took the word to be real. And instead of I am the absolute, I am the non-dual, one without a second, it became I am the person, I am the body-mind. And that's when our problems started. But we've been trying, we get the taste of it, or the element, and try to become total. And the very idea of trying to become is the problem. It's a matter of looking into it, investigating and seeing that you already are that. Anyone who is not aware right now, anyone who's not conscious right now, you're not aware of the future. You can try and imagine, anticipate it, or you're not aware of the past. The past is gone unless you recall it. But it's right now that awareness is going. Well, you don't know what awareness is. But can you negate your awareness? Can you say, I am not? You can't. You can't get away from that sense of presence, which translates as the thought, I am. It's words we've learnt, I am. Instead of saying, I am the absolute, because look at the absolute. What they mean by absolute, it means that nothing can be added to it. It's the totality. Nothing can be taken away from it. It's absolutely all that there is. If you recognise that, you can't go around telling people you are the absolute, because they'll put you in the funny farm. But know that that is all there is. One without a second, when they tell you it's non-conceptual, ever-fresh presence awareness, just this, nothing else. If you recognise you're the absolute, what can you add to it? If I'm the absolute, nothing can be added to it. So who could be inferior to me? I've got this idea, there's these people that are inferior. Or who could be superior to me? Or this one's superior, or that one's inferior, or like this and don't like that. And what would you want from the other persons? And that's what our human life is all about. We feel superior or inferior, insecure, vulnerable, and we're in conflict with everybody and everything because of that sense of separation. I tell you loudly and clearly, it's inseparable. You can't separate it. It's indivisible. You can't divide it. So where's that leave you? Anyone who is not presence and aware of that presence right now, without any concepts onto it. So that's what we say, start from the fact that you already are that. Then you don't have to start from behind the 8 ball when I'm this miserable human being that needs to become something and search for years and years looking into this and looking to that to get some idea or concept about it. But recognise right in this present moment, I'm not unaware. See it and know it. Every one of you has had taste of it, and you wouldn't be here if you hadn't had taste of it. There's a resonation with it, a recognising. But we get trapped into the habitual patterns because they were reinforced when we went to school. We learnt words, we continue to learn words and learn all these things. Then go into the religions and tell you you've got to become this and got to become that. Instead of realising that you are pure being, you call yourself a human being. Believe in God, you'll call God the Supreme Being. Take away that label of human. Take away the label Supreme. Try and tell me you're not being right now without the label. You can't negate it. You know that I am. That I am is not I was, or not I will be, but is what I am right now. Anyway, that's enough for today. You're all here, and most of you wouldn't be here if you hadn't had taste of it, and you can tell me about it in a way that somebody else might hear it, but they mightn't hear it here, and resonate with it. And others who are looking into it for the first time, got any questions, don't hesitate to ask them, because we're somebody that will answer it for you. But that's what it's all about, the right understanding, the right knowing.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Welcome to those who came a bit later. And we have a couple of comments. We have 30 people with us online right now. And Manju is sending love, and she says it's unbelievable she can be here with us. She's been here last week, so it's not easy to be with us. Nat says, hello, beautiful treasures, Bob and Kat. So happy that I can join you today and see Bob looking so well. And Manju says, God, love you so much, you are the treasurer. Yes, he's a treasure, I'm a treasurer looking after the treasure, but he's looking after me too. And Caroline says, hi everyone, great to see Bob shining, radiant and well. And love from Wendy. And Nat says, Einstein said, everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. That's the full quote. And Vivek says, GM to all dear ones. Zanti sends lots of hearts. And British Julia, hi Bob and Kat, as you know, my mother passed this week. Nobody dies, yet the persona is deeply missed. There is absolute love and sadness, yet it is all a paradox. The person never existed, yet fully existed within the dream. It's odd feeling, this paradox. The sadness just comes. You can't escape that. A miraculous dream. Can you or Bob add anything? And I'll just add, Xanti says, heartfelt condolences to you, dear Julia, and we're joining up to it.
Yes, Julia.
Everyone, I guess. Yeah. You want to add something to it?
Well, if you don't put the label on sadness, is it sadness? If you don't put the label fear on it, is it fear? It's just as it is, sensations. Ever fresh, ever new.
And if you look deeper, those sensations are only there because of the love and appreciation for the miracle of the pattern that she was. If there wasn't that clear seeing, even though I remember she was passing for quite a while and it was pretty messy, as it often is, you still see that miracle of aliveness, and you see the brilliance of the pattern, the infinite complexity, the absolute reflected in that huge sand mandala that is just blown away. And it is blowing away how, the creation of such an incredible existence as a human with all its stories and fears and insecurities and dreams and desires and all of it, like the whole holographic universe reflected, suddenly just got swapped away. But did it? If you don't think about her, she doesn't exist. If you didn't think about her 20 years ago, she didn't exist. And when you do, she does. The thought formation is also a form of expression of that one essence. My father passed away not that long ago, a few months ago. And every time I look into the heart, every memory and every feeling is still there. When the thought is there, the response is there. But yes, you're right, it's a beautiful paradox. Nothing exists unless you label it and bring it out of that infinite possibility as the shape of form, thought form, to interact with. Seemingly separate, but only seemingly. Hold up, Julia, watch it. This amazing moment in the journey to be confronted with the strong feelings, all underlying love. It's just the way it plays out. The sadness, the appreciation, the confrontation, the paradox. This is all just the different faces.
And it's interesting to watch thought, feeling and emotion are one.
Just get the spot.
Thought, feeling and emotion are one. Interesting to watch that. Thought, feeling, emotion are one.
Yeah.
Finished.
Yep.
And lots of love from Tanya and Joe. And now we have 35 with us. So anyone would like to maybe add on that note, or anything else in Bob's spiel moved you somehow? You heard it and you would like to reiterate or maybe clarify further or maybe ask question, because this is the time when we basically, we start from the fact that we are already aware of our presence. So there is no one who knows of being present any more than you do. So there is no one who can tell you anything that you don't already know about the topic of non-duality, which means that there is an awareness of presence and that you are. The concept that you are something else than awareness of presence, a body or the mind or the story, that's just a concept. Without that concept, the awareness of presence is here. So we all equally well know that we are. So we all equally well can express our non-dual understanding, which is the base of everything. Just pushing away all the concepts and doubts and ideas that are in opposition to that basic simple fact, which none are really. I mean, no idea can cancel out the fact that you are, to even entertain the idea. So if there is anything that moved you that you would like to highlight from Bob's spiel, or maybe from your own understanding, or a question, or yes, Anita. Good to see you.
Yeah, hello. Lovely to see you too, you guys. I was just going to remind people that Ramana said when he was dying, and he said to his followers, you know, they're all crying, they're going to lose their guru, and he said, look, where am I going? I will always be here. I'm here. I'm here, and that's where I'm always here.
Where can I go?
Yeah, yes. Where can I go? That's right. And so some people will think, oh, he's going to stay here for us. Yeah. But actually, there is no time. There is no here, there or now or later or before. There isn't. And that's the basic reality. Just the things come and go within that. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah.
It's just a different flavoured ice cream in the great ice cream, isn't it?
Yeah. Different flavours show up. That's a good analogy, good metaphor. I heard a life being equated to a big banquet where there is a lot of different experiences, flavors, tastes, colors, shapes, forms, and there is a possibility to just recognize that what you are is that witnessing presence. And everything appears and disappears within you, that witnessing presence. Not for you or to you, none of that. You know, of course there is a negative story to me and I'm a victim, or there is a positive story for me so I can learn. That's the grandiosity delusion. If you see that you are the witnessing presence, the open field, limitless, boundless, and everything appears within you, not separate, inseparable from you. It is the experiencing arising in the consciousness. So they can't possibly be separate from the consciousness. You're already experiencing in this moment the non-separation. But the concept comes and says, no, I'm this body and everything outside the body is not I. Well, but that's a concept. Without that thought, it can't be experienced. So this is really about the simple, basic, direct experience. And we have Manju saying, hi Bob, I still feel like person. How can I delete it completely and establish on who truly me? Thank you. I still feel like a person. Who feels like a person, Manju? Is there a feeling of being a person floating through consciousness? Or is it someone who has the feeling and labels it as a feeling, oh, this feeling is named being a person? And how do you even know that that's what it is? Do you want to comment on that feeling of being a person?
Yeah, well, thought, feeling and emotion, that was pointed out before, are all three aspects of the one thing. Just like in nature, you've got steam, water and ice. When the sun evaporates the water, comes steam, a cloud that covers the sun. But then it cools down and becomes water and then becomes solid and ice. But it's still three aspects of the one. So thought, first is the thought. That thought, when it's long enough, becomes a sensation or a feeling. And those feelings are labelled as anger, fear, depression, guilt, whatever. And then keep it there long enough, it becomes emotion. Once it gets into the body, stirring up the nerves, the elements and everything else, you know, the anger and all the rest of it, it's into the body and becomes pretty damaging. But left as it is, unaltered, unmodified, uncorrected, without it touching, it's going to change. Just the same as life changes. It's daylight here now. What happened? The earth just rolled around the sun a little bit more, And this end that was facing away from the sun, now facing towards it, will become light. Keep rolling, and the other side will come up and be dark. Does the earth know anything in darkness or light? It doesn't. Winter, summer, or anything else, they're the same. As the thoughts come up, good, this is good, we like it. As soon as we like it, we don't want to lose it. Because the opposite will come up, bad. Something comes up, you like it. The good things we like, we don't want it to go. Not realising it, everything's transient. It's all changing, constantly and spontaneously changing. We don't want the good things to go because I like it. But it changes. We don't want it to go, we want to keep it there, so what do? We resist it, trying to keep it there. We cling to it and resist it, try and stop it from going. Not realising that resistance is conflict. Any resistance you are in, you're in conflict, you're at war with it. So we're fighting, trying to keep it there. Good and bad are in conflict with one another. Not realising they're two ends of the one stick. So conflict makes you fearful, anxious, depressed, guilty, not at ease. So there's resistance, conflict and disease coming up. The other way around, something comes up that we like. We want to keep this one there. Not realising it's transient, it's going to change anyway. We try to keep it there. So we're resisting it again. Conflict and disease. That's what our life consists of. Constant resistance, constant conflict, constant uneasiness. Because we divide and separate, take the word to be real. What happens if we leave it as it is? And we say day becomes night, winter becomes summer, silence becomes... It moves around itself. And good and bad are not separate. We separate them. We like the good and don't want the bad. But we realise it's not separate. Left as it is, sooner or later it will come back again. It will come around. So instead of that conflict going on, leave it as it is, unaltered, unmodified, uncorrected, and it changes by itself. And then in the change and knowing it's changed by itself, the resistance is going to abate. What's the point of resisting it when you know it's going to cause you conflict? So when there's no resistance there, it's allowed to change. It's left as it is. And what is means unaltered, unmodified, uncorrected. Not as it was, not as it will be, but as it is. And that is constantly transient, it's constantly changing. So it comes about by itself. And all that resistance dies out because it's only me that can be fearful, me that resists it, only me that can be unhappy, anxious, depressed, guilty. Me is the cause of all my psychological suffering. The fear, the anxiety, the stress, the guilt, the shame, remorse, all that, when I believed in this me, it's taken on by the me. And they're the effects are, the shame, remorse, the guilt, they're the effects of the cause. Isn't that what they call so-called karma, cause and effect? What happens if I investigate and recognise the cause, me, is a fiction? There's no me, it's just a label, a concept. And if I'm not relating to a cause, there's no relationship going on, it's just as it is. Is it going to settle down by itself instead of fighting with it and concept with it? And it does. Life lives on life, and out of life more life comes, and it's constantly transient, constantly changing. Learn to be with it, leave it as it is, settle down.
Just back to what Manu was saying about she still feels like a person. Bob says that the word person comes from the Latin or the Greek persona, which is image. And what we're pointing out here is that you're not the image you have about yourself. And really have a look at that, because the image is never the real. And, the story that you have about you, Manu, is just a story. There's just a whole bunch of narration going on, and the biggest one is that you're a person or a me. And what's pointed out here is you're not that. So really, really go into that and have a look at that.
Thanks.
Yes, the idea that I'm still a person is, well, it's a habit. It's what we've been taught for a long time and what we've believed. And, it is identification with the mind. And Bob was talking about the cause and the effect. We not only identify with the cause, we identify with the effect. We identify with those feelings of, anxiety and conflict, all those things that come up in the mind. We go, oh, that's me, I shouldn't feel like that, I've got to get rid of it or whatever. And that emphasizes the effect thing. So we've got to let go of the idea that we are the thinking altogether. And then there's identification with the body too, and thinking there's something wrong with the body or whatever it is. We take that on as being part of our story and add to that. It's really just, it's very simple, but seemingly hard to do because we're taught otherwise. But we're just the now, just the present in the now, and all that stuff about who we are and what's happened to us and all that is not who we are. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Jane pointed out persona, the image.
Sorry, Bob?
Jane was pointing out the image, the persona. Well, listen, what does Nisargadatta says? He says, nothing can trouble you, nothing can trouble you, except in your own imagination. It brings that image into it again. Imagination, break that imagination down to image in. And isn't that what we're doing? We're creating conceptual images about this, that and everything else. And that's what's bothering us. We've got a conceptual image. If you see the image, well look, what's an image? Look in a mirror. What do you see in the mirror? Reflections or images. You can't say they're not there. But go up to the mirror and try and pull an image out of the mirror. You can't, because it's not there. So it is and it isn't. That's the thing you've got to understand. It appears to be, but in reality is nothing. So when we've got these conceptual images, treat them the same way. Is this image that I've got about myself or about what's happening right now, is it real? Has it exactly as it is? And I say investigate and see.
Just add a little bit to that as well. I've found for myself that the thing that really helped me to try and break that habit of self is coming into the present moment, because it's only in the mind the self is constructed. Mm-hmm. And when you're in the present moment, that's your optimum experience can happen of no mind. Yes. That's where the mind drops. It can't drop before or after. Mm. So present moment awareness, and that means coming into the body, embodying the present moment. And then the mind, I can't carry you away into before or after. Mm. So I found that the present moment, contemplation is the greatest thing that helped me to maintain. So I get caught up in things.
What's wrong with right now unless you think about it? That's the best pointer of all time from Bob. What's wrong with right now unless you think about it?
In one of the Upanishads, I don't remember which one, it goes, I translate it, It goes Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnasya Purnama Mudachyate Purnamadayana Purnamami Vishishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. It goes, this is the whole, that is the whole. The part of the whole is the whole. The whole comes from the part comes from the whole. This is perfect and that is perfect. Peace, peace, peace. One or two finishes.
That was the last verse in the Guru Gita we used to sing.
The Riva Gita.
Guru Gita.
Oh, Guru Gita.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Everything's perfect. It went from the perfect is taken, only perfect remains.
Yeah.
Right? Yes. And we have.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a couple of comments here. Manju says, "Thank you, Jane. I missed you last week there."
Missed you too.
And I hope it helped you, Manju, what everyone elaborated on, like Jane beautifully pointed persona or the mask, the costume, the image. And Bob was saying about thought, feeling and emotion. Cliff beautifully elaborated on that, Feeling like a person is not a feeling, really. Person is a thought. Feeling like what? Like anxious or the feeling is something else than the thought. In that, they all the same. They aspects of the same energy because everything is one ultimately. But just look really, really, really deeply. What is that feeling? And don't mix it with the thought. Then you will actually see the feeling is just a transient phenomena. And the thought and belief in the thought is the problem. And in the present moment, like Anita was saying, the mind is time. No mind, no time. No thought. Nothing wrong with right now. There is no feeling like a person, because person is a thought. You can't feel like a person if you don't have a thought. So keep looking and give us a call or come again. There is also, Sally says, "It is astounding to realize that I am the space between the thoughts rather than thoughts. When all of my life I have thought, I was the thoughts." Yeah, great point, Sally, absolutely. And Vivek says, "Mind which is still will rest in a real I." Yeah, mind which is still is no mind, right? Mind is vibration. The stillness is the base. Beautiful. And not for the mind which considers the body world as real. And now we have British Julia says, "The thoughts, feelings, identification as me are all appearing in consciousness. You don't see a flower and think that's what you are. You just observe it. It's just the same with thoughts or any story of me." Beautiful. Yeah. And Peter, "All thoughts and concepts are the same, even the concept word awareness. We need to be noticing, dissolving the limitations of thoughts, words and concepts every moment, and the real can shine through. This is traditionally called the via negativa, negating the false reality of the dream." Yeah, thank you. So, anyone? Yes, please.
It's a little story, very small story, from, I think it's the Isha Upanishad. There was a rishi called Yajnavalkya. And Yajnavalkya had a disciple who had a little bit of dust in his eyes. So Yajnavalkya sent him away to live the life of a householder. He says, "When you're ready, the guru will appear." This guy went off to live the life of a householder. Years passed, and then Yajnavalkya went to check up on this fellow. And he found him watching the king on an elephant in a procession. So he sidled up next to him, dressed as a blind beggar, approached this fellow, this student of his, and he says, "Pray, I'm blind. Pray tell me what is happening." Fellow says, "There's a king on an elephant coming in a procession." He says, "I'm blind, birth blind. So pray tell me, is the king sitting on the elephant or is the elephant sitting on the king?" So the man said, "You foolish fellow, it's the king who always sits on top, and the elephant has 4 legs, and it's the beast, and it carries the elephant." Fellow says, "Now I've understood that. Pray, enlighten me a bit more." When you say top and below, pray tell me what is top and what is below. So this fellow says, it's difficult to explain to you what is top and what is below. So here, and he put this guy on his shoulders. He says, "Now you are on top and I'm below." Fellow says, "Now I've understood that very clearly. Pray enlighten me just a little bit more. Pray tell me whose is you and whose is I." And the fellow put Yajnavalkya down, prostrated before Yajnavalkya, and said, "Guru, thank you for enlightening me."
Beautiful.
I just wanted to say that you're both so beautiful, and I love you both so much.
Can't hear you.
She says we are beautiful and she loves us. And we love you too, Paula. Gets one to know one. The reflection.
You know, talking about the unreality of the dream made me think also, in a dream you are there, but you don't appear as the person you think you are, you know, or you think you are in the waking life. It's sort of like you're there, observing and taking part in the dream, but you don't seem to have a body or the dream and the history, and everything in the dream can change suddenly, and it doesn't have that same sort of continuity of I am me in the dream, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Someone take it.
There's this lovely little story as retold by Major Chadwick, later known as Sadhu Arunachala. Major Chadwick was an officer in the British Army based in Buenos Aires. He heard about Ramana in the early 30s, resigned his commission, came to Tiruvannamalai, and stayed with Ramana till Ramana died. And he died later in Tiruvannamalai, and he's buried close by. And Major Chadwick says, when I first came to Ramana, I always had this problem about dreams. Ramana kept saying that the waking world, the waking dream is identical to the sleeping dream. How can that be? I said, Bhagavan, when the waking dream seems to have some continuity between one day to the next, whereas the sleeping dream is all over the place. How can they be identical? But Ramana stuck to his guns. He said not only identical, he said there's not one iota of difference. And then a few weeks passed, and that night he had a dream. There was a bishop. He was arguing in the dream with the bishop and a third guy, when the bishop suddenly exclaimed, "You will talk like this now, but you won't talk like this in a dream." And he woke up. He says, people who don't understand what I'm trying to get at won't get it. But I ran to Ramana and I told him the dream was so vivid, I thought I was in the waking dream. Ramana smiled and said, "Sadhu."
Yeah, that one is often equated to the waking dream, that sort of a leaving reality. But there really is no difference if you pay attention, if the consciousness is interested in actually investigating the night dreams. Although I can see small kind of paradoxical superiority of the night dream over the daydream, because the identification is usually more kind of location-based than the story-based. If you really look closely in the situations from your dreams, you find yourself somewhere. You don't know how you get there because the frontal lobe is still asleep. and you interact with the environment according to the way the body has been prepared for it or conditioned. So even though it is scrambled, it may go all over the shop. You are on the boat one moment and in a ship or in the skies or flying or running, or there is always that moment where you are a character, central character. But if you ask yourself how old you are, you may find no recollection. Or when you ask yourself whether you are the person that is sleeping on the bed, even remembering your identity, the costume, the details, the name, is not that obvious, again, because part of the brain that simulates that reality at night is asleep, while the part of the dream that simulates that reality in here, the frontal lobe with the default mode, with all that stuff, is awake. So it seems more realistic when we are here, but really it is more dreamy. It is more dreamy because the idea that there is a self is dreamt on top of the idea of the character interacting with the environment. So really this dream is perhaps more detailed and more convincing, but is more dreamy, is more false, is further away from the simple reality of the direct experiencing. While at night, that interaction, that experiencing goes on, unfolds moment to moment, without dragging the past, without dragging that identity that, I am a girl, I went to this school, I had this hospital experience, my parents. That stuff is not present. So it is, in a way, more awakened or more light than this so-called waking dream.
Sadhu.
I guess
This way.
Sorry.
I guess we take ideas away from both. So we see ideas as like another thing, just like all the things that are going on in each, but in the dream we're less attached to the continuity.
Yeah.
We're less attached to, that blanket of story, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And again, that the mind is time, right? So that whole past and future projected, the past, the things which are all happening in this moment right now, but as the thoughts, the whole imagined past is included in that moment, and the whole imagined future is included in that moment because of that activity of that instrument to imagine, the imagination, imaginative power. So when it is seen through, there is nothing wrong with any of it. It's quite amazing, it's quite brilliant, quite beautiful. But when it is not seen through, well, it causes suffering. The identity, the belief, the energy, the life essence, which becomes a belief and floods that story of separation, story of being limited. And being limited obviously means being deficient, being less than total. Even if I have super high self-esteem, there is still me versus the world. So it can never feel like a lasting fulfillment or sense of completeness. And the sense of completeness is really just a pointer. When the sense of incompleteness is seen through as an illusion, as a bullshit, as just misidentification, I am not the costume. Costume is incomplete by all means. But if I'm not the costume, and there is no other I that is anything, then of course the sense of incompleteness is gone. Now who is there to be complete? There is no one there. It's just this open field of knowing, presence, awareness. So there is no one who is complete, no one who is enlightened, no one who is liberated. But that's the liberation. That's the freedom. That's the natural joy of being. Just being oneness with life. But there is no one who is one with life. But there is no one who is separate. As brilliantly Nisargadatta said, nothing wrong anymore. Anything that is ever wrong, as Jane quoted the book that we have here on the table, what's wrong with right now? If you don't think. Everything that is ever wrong is in the thought. No thought, no problem. Even if the experiences in this moment are threatening for the costume. Well, that may well be. You may have mortal disease, cancer, or you may have whatever the situation in the body, and it all happens. Everybody gets old, sick, and die eventually. But that is the body that gets old, sick, and die, not the eye. Like Anita was saying about Ramana. Yes.
Werner Heisenberg, Niels Bohr, Max Planck, they were known as the fathers of quantum physics. It seems when he was dying, Heisenberg, he told his friend, "I can see now, very clearly, that the physics is of no consequence. This is so beautiful, it is just perfect," and he died.
Steve Jobs.
Go on, Dean.
Go where?
Go on.
No. No.
Come on, Dino.
What should we talk about?
Look at the beast. She's gonna give us a teaching, huh? She didn't take her long. She was waiting here. Let's go with the calendar.
Oh, gorgeous.
Okay, Dean, now your turn. Kat has spoken.
I'm not really sure. I don't know. I really don't know at all, anything at all. It's just one show. Like I don't even know. Stop it.
What did Nisargadatta say? Not knowing is best.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It flows on from the Heisenberg, because he was the cloud of uncertainty, if you like, in his physics. And he gets to the end. He said, it comes to nothing.
Please?
Just add something to that.
Yeah.
The fathers of quantum physics, and I think it was Heisenberg's uncertainty principle that you couldn't know, how something was until Schrodinger's cat and all that sort of stuff. You couldn't say anything was the way it was until it was observed. It was the observation that actually defined what was happening, and it's pointed to that consciousness creates the material world, that all comes out of consciousness, not the material world being there and then consciousness coming from that, but sort of revolutionised thinking in that area, which, of course, the great seers had known for many years before that.
Quantum physics was catching up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kat has taken up the hot seat, says Vivek. The CAT Kat. Yeah, she's keen to share. And she is the great master, like Dean was saying. I don't know anything. Well, that's the freedom. Knowing a lot, like I used to know a lot. Oh my goodness, I used to know what I was, who I was. I used to know my name, and that was who I was. That knowing is debilitating. The not knowing is the freedom from the known also. That was, I think, Krishnamurti's book.
You do.
Yes. Yeah, freedom from knowing, freedom from the need to know, because all the way the mind facilitates, and of course there's no mind, it's just thinking, facilitates fear, which comes directly from identification with the thought processes. It's more thinking. So if I don't know something, I'm terrified, and then I have to find the knowledge, concepts, to medicate the fear. But that's only multiply fear. And then, of course, there is ultimate fear of losing the mind and not knowing even what I used to know. So the freedom to not know, to be completely comfortable in the way the life unfolds, and if the response is required, well, the body will find a way to respond, and if it doesn't, well, the body will go away. So what? And then the comfort in that situation, not needing to have anything figured out or understood, not needing to work it out, just being completely at ease with life, just flowing, being one with the flow of life. That's what she demonstrates. See?
It's fine if you're in a good retirement home. I mean.
That's the
I could let go fine if I'm in a good retirement home. You know, there's TV and they'll look after me. Don't need to know anything.
Yeah. But even now, if you're not in a good retirement home, frankly, you're just a few decades too young for it to start with. But life looks after itself. And yeah, there is nothing dreadful about that life leaving the form also. Just pairing. I think we have the comment here from Nat. As usual, such an amazing pointers from Bob and Kat fills my heart with peace and love every time. How can we thank you enough? Love you both dearly. Thank you, Nat. And Dito. We wouldn't be speaking if there was no one here reflecting that. And Joe says, lovely to hear and connect. You both look well. Good to see you both and everyone else in the room. Yeah, give us a call. And that's that for the online comments. You want to have a sip? Now the silence speaks. So the most obvious question that comes up in many ways is what Manju was saying. I still feel like a person. Or often we hear it, oh, I understand it intellectually, but I don't feel it. The presumption that there is an I who needs to feel something. And what it needs to feel, that imagined I, is not this, something else. Something different than this. This is no good. This is not, life created this moment perfect, but there is an imagined I who says, no, life is wrong. There should be something else. I don't know what, but not this. So that's what it boils down, that question. I don't feel it, or I get it intellectually, or I understand it, but I don't embody it. And I'm not making fun of that question, because it was my question for most of my life. So it really does feel genuine to have that question that, hey, I still feel there is a contraction, I feel that I'm identified, that I am separate, and no matter how much I hear and how much I talk myself not to feel it, that's the experience right now. But it really isn't. It really isn't. It's a belief. That's not the experience. That's a belief.
In my humble opinion, for Manju,
yes.
Even the feeling, Manju, that you feel separate is also perfect and as it should be. And even the feeling that you're coming out of this feeling of not being a person and coming back to wholeness is also perfect and as it should be. It's unfolding exactly as it should.
Absolutely. Please.
I think on that, what you said was, I know it intellectually, but I don't sort of experience it. I think that's sort of the problem. It's knowing it in a thinking way, and knowing that there's something that we need, somewhere that I need to get to, or something like that. Instead of, and I think Bob says it quite often, or you've got to live from there, live from that. Just from beingness, from the now, without without the thinking, it's just a matter of actually, it's sort of like a leap of faith that you've got to jump into just really identifying or just not identifying, being in the beingness, rather than trying to get it and find it all the time. I don't know how else to say it, but something.
I think thought isn't the enemy. Thought is just a narration which has been going on ever since we learned word, as Bob said. And, the thought of me, as was said before, is perfect too. The thing is, you're not that me. You're not the narration. It appears upon that presence that you are. That presence awareness that you are, that there's no separation, there's just oneness. But we identify with that narration, and we're not the narration, but it's okay that the narration goes on. It's okay. And I think the resistance happens when you think you're thinking the wrong thing, or you're not getting it, or blah, blah, blah. It's just blah, 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 really. But, it's all good. It's all good. It's all happening as it should. And I love Paul Hedemann's pointer, is that there, if you use it as a metaphor, like there's a railway station and there's trains coming and going. Well, thought could be those trains coming and going. And that presence that you are is the railway station. The railway station is immovable. It's never going to move. It's always there. And the trains are coming and going. And, and that's okay. The problem is when we grab onto one of those thoughts, or we tell the train to stop, or, that's the problem, is... nothing's wrong with right now unless you think about it. And even if there is thinking going on, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that either. It's the identification with the thinking as a separate entity that's the problem. Thoughts are okay. They come and go. And the less you resist them, the less thoughts there are.
You have to change the destination of the train from misery to just the train going along. But I was also wondering about, because she was talking about the feeling of it last week. Like for me, like a thought, sometimes prior to a thought I can see a notion. So it's just like something pops up and you kind of know what it's about, but it's not formed beyond that. There's just kind of knowing of what it's about. And then the words might pop in, the narrative words might, like half the sentence might pop, then there might be like a not wanting to go there. The sentence stops halfway through. So there's two different things, and they show up in different parts of, space. I'm quite spatial. And, I was wondering kind of if she's dug into her feeling, like what part of the body is it in, just having a wee explore of that feeling of I. And because all these things, you just notice they're popping, there's no... blueprint or no little description or markers or little person sitting there, saying, oh, this one's coming, or this, there's nothing apart from just this kind of fuzzy visual for me. Something popping and then something over here. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
There's a natural thing that happens There's a natural thing that happens when you just start to not attached to any thinking or anything like that, is that you then realise where everything's included, thought, no thought, that there's a locus here where the heart really comes in, the heart centre, not the physical heart centre, but that the intelligence energy just starts to really function through that centre, quite powerfully, so that your sense of being in a loving awareness of everything, there's space for the mind, no mind, space for everything, and it kind of sorts itself out effortlessly,
Yes,
yeah.
Without being unaltered, unmodified, or uncorrected.
Exactly, all of that,
Bring it back to what
that
Bob said.
Upanishad thinking as well. Yeah.
Alan Watts, he said in the Visuddhimagga, the Buddha, as retold by Alan Watts, the Buddha is reputed to have said this, says, the path there is none who walk it, nirvana is none who attain it. This is my beautiful wife, Sigrid, from Berlin. And last Sunday we completed yet another Vipassana course. And after that we went to Adelaide. We did the Vipassana course in Blackheath in the Blue Mountains. And then we came, we took a 24-hour bus ride from Sydney to Adelaide with a 1-hour halt in Melbourne.
Wow.
And we spent a week with my sister, my nephew, and my little 9-year-old daughter. And as they say, if you think you're enlightened, spend a week with your family.
That's a beautiful adventures. Anita?
What was just spoken about being in the heart centre, that's, I think, when you're coming into timelessness, into the present moment, the quickest ways through the breath, that was traditionally used, right, is the movement of the breath in the chest, because that brings you right into the moment. So it helps to rid those thoughts that are driving you insane, or pushing you here and there in the emotions. So the breath is one of the best ways to come straight into the present moment, I think. Yeah.
Bob often talks about it. Riding. What is it you say? Ride the breath.
Ride the thought on the breath.
Ride the thought on the breath.
Yeah, let the thought ride out on the breath.
Yeah. Elaborate on it.
Well, if you breathe in, what do? You inspire. It's where your inspiration comes from. But if you hang on to that thought and breathe out and leave the thought there, well, it's going to trouble it. But as you inspire it, if you let the thought ride on the breath, as soon as you finish that breath, there's a little bit of a gap there. That gap will become longer.
Inspire, expire.
That's still coming and going, isn't it? That's still coming and going. That's still a movement.
Yeah.
And it's when the breath stops in between those movements that...
That's what he's saying.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what he's saying.
Coming and going in the still.
And then there's that little gap, he says. Yeah, the gap. Yeah.
And as the breath goes, there is uninterrupted presence that enables that breath to go, to move, to come on and off.
Yes.
It's just a moment of, like the main question, what's wrong with right now if you don't think about it? It's not a pointer to stop thinking. It's not a pointer which is going to say that thinking is wrong and you should have clear, empty mind with no thoughts, because there is no you who could possibly do that. So it is really just to notice for an instant that without thoughts going on, you still are, you still exist, you're still breathing, you're still conscious, there is presence, not necessarily called you. You don't have to call it anything, because to call it you or I or me, that requires a thought.
You realise there's no thinker of a thought. Thinking happens. What's your next thought going to be? You can't tell me. But thinking will come up and just claim it. I think. As soon as you've claimed it as I think, you've formed a subject, a thinker. Thinking this thought. And the thoughts become the object. So we turn the thinking to subject-object. But can there be a thinker without thinking? There can't be. And can there be the thought without thinking? So what Shakespeare says is right, nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so.
And when you see the like the notion thing pop up, or the half sentence or the full sentence, that moment there's no thought on the thought. So you can see the notion's just there, and it's all the same stuff. It's just stuffness. Yeah, and like the memory when it's looked at later is like, a label of I guess that was the notion, and I guess that was half a sentence that kind of stopped, because it was this kind of thing going on of seeing what's there, so things didn't complete necessarily, but no, it's all the same thing, where it's just like a picture drawing with a pop up there which has got a notion label if you bother to put it on. If you're not bothering or thinking about it, there's this stuff there. And even kind of the notion of knowing what the notion is the same stuff, and it's part of that picture as well.
Absolutely.
It's just all the one picture.
Yeah.
And that's there's no thought at like an observer of the picture at all. It's the picture.
Yeah.
And so no meaning making is happening.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, brilliant. It's like sometimes we call it, we equate it to a basic screen. So everything that is appearing, judgment over judgment, comment over comment, meaning making over the comment, over the judgment and over the feeling, all happening on that basic screen. We don't claim that there is a screen. Because the screen is space, it's no thing. It neither exists nor it doesn't exist. So it really is that which never changes. That reality is that which never changes. When you go to the core or the essence, like Andy was pointing, you can call it heart or the core, the essence. There is something like the still point through which everything revolves. It seems like that's the center of the universe, but that's not the me, that's not a concept, that's not an image. That's that stillness of the heart that doesn't have any label or any content. And coming back to that, what's wrong with right now? In that moment, when there is stillness and there is no content and there is no thinking, the livingness is there. That livingness is what never changes. That livingness is what you are, and it doesn't have shape or form. It can't be witnessed, because it is the witnessing presence. So it can't be seen as an object. Coming back to that, but I have few comments to include. British Julia says, thank you all. I have some lovely pointers for the sleeping at the funeral service. And she's laughing. Good, you can laugh. And Dale Allison says, the thinking is the translation of this being experiencing. Absolutely. Kathy says, lovely to be here now. Lots of love, Bob and Kat. Thank you, Kathy. And British Julia, all just happening. Even jumping on train thought. Just this. Absolutely. And there is no one jumping. It's just the attention, which is life essence, following because it's naturally attracted to that sort of a vibration. So it feeds it, like there is no one doing it anyway. It's a habit of the attention flowing to the particular concepts. Like, musician will be obsessing about music. And for some reason, that default mode network make almost every human being obsess about themselves. But that can be seen through. And the selves that don't really even exist. Nobody have ever found one. It's totally conceptual, totally thought up, like the Santa Claus when you were a child. And Julia says, oh no, that's Manju. Thank you everyone in the room for clarifying me to know who I truly am. This you can't know, Manju. That you are, you'll know. You always know. You can't deny it. You can't deny that you exist. But who you are, how could you ever find out who you are? Where would you look at it from? Because you are that, you can't objectify yourself. And I know that this is what you mean. I'm saying it into a broader context, that to know who or what you are is totally it's a fiction, it's illusion. That's unknowable. Unknowable, because that's a knowing principle. Knowing. There's no one who can know. There is not a need for anyone to be a one. There is no need for any identity to have any answers.
You can only know who you're not.
Yeah. The knowing who you are not can be there, yes. And anything that is objectified, that is perceivable or conceivable, is an object in consciousness. So that can be discarded. And but who you truly are, Manju, that you truly are. That you are. You are. That is the truth.
Just
That is isness. Yes, and Peter says, wonderful satsang meeting fellowship today. Thank you, Peter. And Manju Kat, please say hi to Dean from me. Thanks. That's Dean smiling back to you. And Sally says, Bob, I have heard you talk about intuition as inner teachings. Can you speak more on that? And who receives the teachings?
Got just one more little.
Hang on, Bob's got
he
to
was
answer.
asked a question.
Bob's got to answer.
Was he?
Yes, the inner teaching, intuition.
Well, that's what they say. Thou shalt hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way. Walk in it, whether you turn to the left or turn to the right. And they call that intuition. And it's the inner teaching. It's the inner voice. It's not some ghostly thing or anything like that. It's just your innate intelligence informs you what's going on. You intuit something, you know. And it expresses itself and knows itself, and that will go on spontaneously after a while. It'll resolve things of itself, and it does. You know, instead of trying to work it out in the mind and say this, that and the other, just leave it. And the answer spontaneously and naturally comes up.
And when there is a question, who receives the teachings? I think the most beautiful explanation Bob was giving is about the questioner and the question. When you actually look into it, who is asking the question, who am I? Or any question, who is asking the question, who will receive the teachings? You will see that the questioner is the question itself. So the one who receives the teaching is the teaching itself. There is no separation. There is just that teaching, like seeing, questioning. That's just functioning, part of the functioning. Conceptualizing someone who receives something is unnecessary. When you see that receiving without the receiver, you know, the two concepts at the end of the one stick are just one. That question, who, becomes really, I mean, it's a good pointer to start investigation, but when you actually, at the end of investigation, you see that's really, really laughable, because there is no one there that is separate to receive anything. And that's that. And yeah, listening with thinking, says Bradley, and JB says, know what you are not and what is left. Good point. And Bradley says, listening with the thinking, there is much to say. Listening from the heart, nothing to say. Spot on. Beautiful. Yes?
Life for me is a series of little awakenings, some big ones, some little. And one big one came on the 6th of January 2006 when my son was born. A few hours later, I was listening to a CD by Tony Parsons, who's a dear friend of mine. And Tony was telling the people in the audience, there's nothing wrong with thinking, people! A year and a half later, I was rifling through some books in the Adyar bookshop, Clarence Street or Kent Street, one of them. And I saw this tramp. I was in the Advaita section, as I normally am. And I saw this tramp, barefoot, sidling towards me. And I started sidling away. And then finally he confronted me. He said, have you read What's Wrong With Right Now If You Don't Think About It? I said, no, I haven't. He said, Sailor Bob, go meet him. He's in Melbourne. December 31st, 2007, I caught the bus from Sydney. I love driving. I love riding buses. I caught the bus to Melbourne. I stayed in this hotel. There used to be a hotel opposite.
Pathfinder.
Yeah.
It's still there?
Still there. Still.
2nd of January 2008, I met you, 15 years back. And still vintage Sailor Bob. I love you, Bob.
Love you.
Yes. And we have a comment from Amit. Great satsang, Bob and Kat. Thank you so much. And I think when the thank you messages start coming, that's the time to thank everyone. Thank you for your
Thank you, Bob and
contribution. And bye, Andy.
Bye, Andy.
Thank you, everyone.
And thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Bob. Love you, Bob.